Back in January of 2010, a studio called Visual Games, based out of Austin, Texas, released a little game called Darksiders, a game that immediately hooked me with its premise. A post-apocalyptic setting where you play as one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I was intrigued from the jump, but I was also skeptical. This was a new IP from a fresh developer, and couple that with the fact that Mass Effect 2, a game that I had been eagerly anticipating, was releasing shortly thereafter, and I had to hold off. Then Darksiders finally came out, and it was outstanding. Drawing heavy inspiration from games like God of War and The Legend of Zelda to spawn a hybrid of the two that works well, Darksiders showed me that even an unproven developer can forge one of the best games of 2010 that still holds up over 7 years later. Visual Games and their former publisher, THQ, created an underrated and most definitely overlooked gem of the previous generation.
Good boy.
Did you enjoy yourself? War in the Black Hammer, plucking pigeons.
You see a great many things from inside a prison, Samael.
When Darksiders opens, it sets the tone as if it's going to be a generic beat-em-up clone. You play as War, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. The game opens with the beginning of the apocalypse on Earth, War being summoned to Earth as a result of 6 of the 7 seals being broken. It is here where we are introduced to War's capabilities, showing off some of your most powerful moves while throwing in some interesting sights, and showcasing some of the enemies you'll be facing throughout the adventure. It at first seems that this will be a Macho Man game, engorged with set-piece action sequences. However, this is most certainly not the case. Due to some events in the opening sequence, our protagonist is blamed for the premature call of the apocalypse and is stripped of all his weapons and forced to start fresh with only a sword and a being known as the Watcher to look after him as he begins his journey to prove his innocence and to find the one who caused the Earth to enter its early demise.
Remember that, or I will really get under your skin.
This is where the real game starts, 100 years after the apocalypse. This gives the developers the creative freedom to build a version of Earth that is only a fragment of what it used to be. The world is open for you to explore and incorporates a Metroidvania style where the map is interconnected and certain areas are blocked off until you gather the necessary equipment to proceed with your exploration. Along the way, you'll meet some interesting characters, venture through some lengthy dungeons, and battle your way past diverse bosses. The key to all of this sits within the pacing of Darksiders. It knows where its strength lies and uses this to great effect. You'll travel to giant sandworm-infested deserts, decimated streets, cobweb-infused buildings, Gothic-inspired dungeons, an old flooded railway, and lush green areas among other locations. It all feels like one giant place because of how all the areas link to flow seamlessly together. The setting is fully realized and brought to life because of the intertwining pathways of the world, and makes it feel more real and not like zoned off instances full of loading screens. Of course, getting around and through it all has to be entertaining, and without a shadow of a doubt it is because of the gameplay. As I previously mentioned, Darksiders draws heavy inspiration from both The Legend of Zelda and God of War, two highly regarded games exclusive to two different consoles, God of War on the Sony side and Zelda on the Nintendo side. I've never played either franchises, and before you track me down and hop on a plane to come slap some sense into me, I've never played these two because at the time I didn't own a PlayStation 2 or 3. I did, however, own a Nintendo 64, GameCube, and a Wii, but I never played any Zelda games because I was not into that kind of genre at the time. However, after playing a game spurred on by the two extremely different titles, it is evident that the pair is a recipe for success. Darksiders uses heavy combat in the vein of an action-adventure genre, using the face buttons like A, B, X, and Y, as well as the bumpers and triggers to perform multiple combos. It takes advantage of every button, bumper, trigger, and control stick, and while it may not be as in-depth as its siblings in this aspect, it does the job well enough and the weapons feel satisfying to use while having a sense of weight to them. The numerous tools at your disposal help make combat encounters flow smoothly. You'll acquire a sword, a scythe, a gun, a shuriken, a grapple hook, a gauntlet, along with a couple other gadgets. 3 of these weapons, the sword, scythe, and gauntlet, can be outfitted with enhancements that give different bonuses to each one. For example, you can equip your sword, known as the Chaos Eater, with an enhancement called Bloodthirst to convert a portion of the damage outputted by it to health for war. This change is demonstrated both in the aesthetic of the weapon by showing a green aura enveloping the sword, and in the combat when you see bits of health being restored by blows connecting with your enemies. There are several more enhancements that you can choose to use, and some are more useful than others, but none are useless. War has the ability to use magic, called wrath spells here, but these allow War to do things like summon a small but efficient field of swords to protrude from the ground, or enabling him to be engulfed by flames to deal extra damage to enemies. When you're involved in combat, a lock-on feature reveals itself and can be used to target specific enemies and can swap between each one with a flick of a control stick. It can be a bit of a hindrance when smaller areas come into play because the camera can get stuck in walls, but it never happens often enough to break the experience. Combat essentially boils down to mashing a set few combos using primarily the Chaos Eater, with room to experiment with the Gauntlet and Scythe. Unfortunately, you are encouraged to use the other secondary weapons in combat because of how insignificant their damage is compared to your main sword. Sure, they give you the option to customize these other 2 weapons with enhancements as well, but you never feel like these are necessary to push through any combat scenario. Some enemies do require you to use the tools not typically used for battles, but it refreshes the gameplay in a minor way so that the player does not find it too stale towards the later half. Speaking about enemies, they offer some difficulty, principally when they gang up on you and attack with more than one of them at a time, forcing you to either block, dodge, or counter their attacks. It makes engagements feel more than just brain-dead swinging of one weapon, because combat would lack without a bit of difficulty thrown in. I did die a few times through my playthrough, most of them being my fault because I wanted to be as aggressive as possible without taking into consideration the amount of enemies on the screen at one given time. One little thing that I really appreciated was the fact that if I fell off a ledge, I wasn't punished by being greeted to a loading screen and having to wait to try again. All I received was a small sliver of my health lost, and then promptly placed back at the ledge that I originally fell off. It reminds me of Mario Kart, where if you fall off a track like Rainbow Road for example, you're lifted up and dropped off pretty much where you fell. While one portion of Darksiders revolves around brawling, the other incorporates puzzles similar to that of the Legend of Zelda games. Dungeons are where you'll find this most apparent. These challenges are not only meant to test your button combo skills, but also your brain. The large-scale areas are meant to befuddle you and make you think. The puzzles hover right between accessible and challenging. Entering the area seems easy enough, but it's only until you're inside that it hits you with a problem that can only be solved via devices and mechanics presented to you. In just about every dungeon, you'll happen upon a specific piece of gear clearly designed for that location. An example of this is in the first dungeon you're given to explore. You'll find a shuriken that reminds you of the giant shuriken from the anime Naruto. Once you collect a special gadget, you'll then use it in the puzzles moving forward. When you get through the stretch of smartly crafted puzzles, you'll move on to the final area before completion, the boss battle. Each boss is excellently designed both aesthetically and mechanically. The stage is set for them to have a grand entrance, and it typically does not disappoint to say the least. All of these pieces collectively create this formula that hits a sweet spot in terms of the time that it takes to complete one dungeon, which can last anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. That's truly where this game shines. Pacing is exceptional, right alongside the level design. When it comes to this aspect, Darksiders beams brightest. As mentioned before, the game is open world, but not in the sense where the map is overloaded with icons left and right. No, rather intertwined. Dungeons are smart and intuitive, and are paced almost to perfection, spacing combat and puzzle solving graciously so that the player never does the same thing for too long at any given time. The world is big, and there is a fast travel system in place to help ease walking long treks to get from one point to the next.
Tragic. Without your feathered friend, how will you escape this prison of rock?
I'll find a way.
You have certainly proven yourself resourceful. Perhaps I can provide a quicker way.
Speak plainly, demon.
Serpent holes, ancient paths that worm their way beneath the husk of this dead world and beyond. I use them to get about, and for a price, so can you.
I say ease because Vigil implemented something unique into their fast travel system. When needing to get to a different area on the map, you'll have to talk to a demon named Vulgrim. This is also the same demon who sells you items and movesets. He will grant you fast travel through an area called Serpent Holes, which transports you to a dark-colored ethereal passageway and then leading you to your destination with floating tiles rising from below. I never minded this feature until the end of the game, where I made the mistake of accidentally taking one of these passages to the wrong location, and then having to turn right back around, talking to Vulgrim, and taking another Serpent Hole to my correct destination. Like I said, this is towards the end, so I became a little annoyed with the tedium of what was a cool idea in the beginning and middle of the game, but nearing completion, I just wanted to be where I wanted to go from the jump instead of having to walk to the next locale over and over and over again. One thing that I really found enjoyment in is the backtracking. I loved acquiring new gadgets and being able to use them in the environment to unlock different items and chests scattered throughout the map. Some of these items will increase your overall health or wrath, which is a must because some of the enemies can deal a lot of damage. A set of armor is hidden in 10 of these chests throughout the entire overworld and can be collected to grant an awesome looking set of gear for war to be outfitted with. Wandering can lead to some quirky and unexpected moments like this as well.
Enchanted to make your acquaintance, War.
It all depends on your willingness to dive into the world and lore of this game, but it's all there for someone to delve deep and spend hours exploring. Without going too much into spoiler territory, Darksiders focuses on the relationship between heaven, hell, and earth. These three are referred to as the three kingdoms, with earth being called the kingdom of man. There is also the Charred Council, a group of beings who keep the balance between the three kingdoms in order. War, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, belongs to the council and serves them to keep the order. We also get the introduction to the Seven Seals, pieces that if broken will cause the apocalypse to be brought upon Earth. After this is established, the end for the kingdom of man is caused by 6 of the seals being broken, and thus starting the apocalypse where heaven and hell send their armies to attack one another. All while war is sent in to try and restore order, via devastation against both heaven and hell. All of this culminates into War being blamed by the council for the destruction of 6 of the 7 seals, and then being stripped of his powers and his soul imprisoned for 100 years before eventually allowing him to prove his innocence through discovery of who really broke the seals and bringing them to justice. This is where War's odyssey full of turns begins, and along the way, you'll meet a varied cast of characters who either lend a hand to War or try to impede his progress. The story isn't anything that'll blow away anyone necessarily, but it does keep you interested enough to see it to completion, with an ending that leaves it open for multiple sequels involving the other three horsemen.
Parasite.
You so much as blink at me, and the council will end you, both of you. I'm protected.
Not in here.
Do it! Tear out her heart while she still lives. I want to hear her scream. I am one of the chosen. I can grant your every wish.
Can you restore the balance?
War is remarkably likable. He's first and foremost all about honor and duty. He does what is required of him without fail and is extremely capable in many scenarios. He's a no-nonsense character that doesn't let anything stand between him and his goals. He is voiced by Liam O'Brien, aka the voice behind Gaara from Naruto.
I've heard those words before. Abaddon said the same. Right before he died.
I can see it clearly. The path of light. Sharing and believing in each other. That leads to hope.
He does a great job at bringing life to the character and making him the menacing being that he's supposed to portray. He's also the most creative looking. You can tell that Vigil put a lot of time and effort into making him intimidating. He's bulky but agile, physically and mentally adept. You'd expect this coming from one of the 4 legendary horsemen, and most of the main characters who come into contact with him recognize him as a threat to be cautious around, as his motives and intentions are transparent.
War. Are you here to play execution? They should have sent all 4 of you.
I have no interest in killing you, Samael.
Ha! The Destroyer is beyond your reach, beyond mine.
Has prison made you a coward?
His design is incredibly unique, shrouded in a red cloak and hood, covered in plated armor with great looking concepts. His main weapon, the Chaos Eater, is enveloped with carvings of expressive faces, and this is reflected by the enhancements showing effects on the faces themselves. He is surprisingly nimble, which you wouldn't assume based off his bulky build and heavy armor plating. Using a dash to slide across the field makes for a faster variation of travel until you are reunited with your steed Ruin, which by the way is animated beautifully. All in all, War is a great protagonist with many positives, the biggest being that he carries a level of weight whenever he enters an area. He's imposing and commands your attention, which is where Vigil truly nailed his character. First things first, I love this game's aesthetic. Everything about the graphics stands out. Even 7 years later after this game's release, it still holds up due to the art style which emphasizes the creative vibe that the world radiates. Now, it must also be noted that the footage you're seeing is from the remastered edition of this game, which includes native 1080p resolution, reworked rendering, improved textures, better shadows, and 60 frames per second in the moment-to-moment gameplay. Never once did I have issues with slowdown or texture pop-in. It's all one beautiful seamless world, and is the way the game should be experienced. Characters look extraordinary, particularly when it comes to the Watcher, War's partner through the adventure and War himself. As mentioned before, War is incredibly detailed and well designed, but besides that he is animated well. His motions are fluid, and little details like the cloth on his shoulder swaying in the wind as he walks from one area to the next is slick looking. He is also the only main character that uses a bright red color scheme, making him stand out among the rest. Color use here is surprisingly different. Blue is used when traveling through the soaring tiles of the serpent holes, green for the lush places like the Anvil's Forge, shades of brown when venturing through the dunes of the Ashlands, making you and your horse stand out as you blaze across the field. It feels as if the environments were handled with a lot of attention to detail. Both angels and demons are handled with care as well. Demons crawl and charge their way over to you without a second thought as they swipe, slash, grab, and swing violently towards War in order to ruin his path of redemption. Angels attack from above, swinging swords or shooting cannons at War, forcing you to deal with them in the air or dropping them to the ground for a full assault. Enemy variety is nice, with a couple reskins thrown in for good measure. Executions are flashy and gory as War severs off limbs from the many beasts he clashes with. The sound of your sword and other weapons being swung around, hitting targets with extreme lethality, is gratifying as you see your enemies topple over waiting for you to finish them off with a grisly execution. One of my personal favorites is when you are fighting an angel till they're ready to be eviscerated and then cutting their wings off before stabbing them in the gut and flipping them over your head. The only negative I have with the execution is that there just aren't that many of them. Each enemy besides 2 have one finisher animation, which makes them feel tedious as you near the end and even the halfway point. Boss executions are fantastic to watch though. They provide a nice visual reward for your hard-fought battle against them. Speaking on bosses, they look grotesque and really give the creatures of Darksiders a more demiurge feeling. I have a couple that stand out in my mind because of their design alone. While the graphics are still pretty to look at, sound design has a couple of problems that didn't ruin the game, but just came across as odd and a little jarring. Sound effects are compelling with War's footsteps as he walks across concrete, sand, and puddles sounding like there's weight to them instead of sounding floaty. Ruin, your steed has excellent sound quality as he charges through sand and leaves streaks of flames in his trail. Weapons all have different sounds as they clash with many beasts that you wander upon. Generally, the sounds all work well and mesh together with the gritty world that you'll travel through. The only place where these effects lack is when they are non-existent. There will be points where you'll throw an explosive sticky bomb, and sometimes the sound of an explosion will occur, but more often than not, the sound effect won't even be present. So many times when I threw an explosive, expecting the results of an unstable boom, I got no sound at all. It stands out when everything else sounds so amazing. Voice acting is awesome though. Liam O'Brien does an exceptional job as the menacing War, and Mark Hamill voices the creepy and sly Watcher.
Changing the deal already, Samael.
Be silent, filth.
Actors like Phil Lamar and Troy Baker along with a few others do an admirable job at giving their characters life, which in turn adds to immersing the player in the world and lore.
Forgive me, friend. I would grant you passage were it within my power. Do for me what you have done for my brethren, and I will hinder you no more.
There must be another way.
The curse must be broken. Then you may pass.
Music is lovely to listen to. A lot of it is more melodic than you would think, incorporating choirs and string instruments, while when engaged in battle, the choir comes to the foreground and the strings fall into the background. But the music is not so intense that it distracts the player from what they're doing while swinging their monstrous sword around. The music has always been something super underrated about the first Darksiders game. It isn't overbearing either. During the periods of time where you meander through the apocalyptic landscape, the music is rather quiet or not present. It allows you to just wander and go where you feel like, without feeling like you need to be on your way to some other portion of the map, destined to fight your next battle moments after fighting your last one. Overall, the look and sound of Darksiders is immaculate and without a doubt still holds up to this day. At the time when Darksiders released, it only reached a total of 1 million in sales, which isn't a huge amount, but could be considered successful for a brand new IP and developer. Vigil started a really intriguing franchise with War and his tale of redemption, and got my attention along with the attention of many others based off the critical reception, which received an aggregate review score of 83 out of 100 on Metacritic. According to HowLongToBeat.com, the game can take about 17.5 hours to complete the main quest, while a completionist run would take about another 10 hours on top of that. And if you're looking for more similar games, I can obviously recommend both God of War and The Legend of Zelda, along with Devil May Cry and the new Castlevania 3D installments that recently dropped a few years ago. It is transparent that the universe of Darksiders is nowhere near being fully explored and has much more lore and story to offer to us. This series has not seen the love and praise that it needs to be shown. Everyone that I've met that's played either installment in this franchise has loved every moment of it. You absolutely must purchase this first installment and enjoy the trip that it will inevitably take you on. Hey guys, it's me. We made it. I didn't record at 4 o'clock in the morning this time. It's actually 3:30 p.m. the day before this video is supposed to go up. I finished recording my voiceover in one day, as opposed to, you know, it taking me 2 weeks to do my voiceover because I hate my voice. But I said, screw it, we're gonna do it because I gotta provide content to you guys, because apparently from the feedback I got in my last video, you guys seem to really enjoy it, and which made me extremely happy. First things first, I want to say thank you to the official Metro Facebook page, who actually gave this video, my Metro Last Light video, a shout out, which is why it reached 1.2 thousand, over 1.2 thousand views. I know it's not a lot. It's a lot for me. I've never had a video reach 1.2 thousand or 1,000 or even 800 or even 700. Shout out to them for that. That was awesome. Also, shout out to you new subscribers. I believe we're at 440 now. I jumped from 420 to 440, so it's 20 subscribers because of that one video and the shout out. Thank you to you guys for sticking around and seeing what I got left in store for you guys. This video is not as long. I don't think it's gonna come out as long as the Metro series, mainly because I didn't want to spoil anything with the story. A lot of it's environmental storytelling, and a lot of it's like just towards the middle and the end of the game, there's a lot of story and stuff, and I didn't want to spoil bosses for you guys or anything like that. I could have done all that, and maybe at some point, if I decide to, if you guys ever decide, you know, why aren't these videos longer, why aren't you going more in depth, I can. I'll throw in a spoiler alert if you guys would want me to, like I did with my Metro Last Light video, but I figured for people who are newcomers to the series that want to play it, they probably want the full experience, just the basics of the story, and then go from there. Also, I'm gonna be putting up Darksiders 2 next instead of Shadow of Mordor, because Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War got delayed to October, and I figure, you know, might as well just wait till a couple months before the game actually comes out and then upload Shadow of Mordor. So I'm thinking Darksiders 2, and then I don't know, if you guys have a game that you want to see me do a video on, I can definitely do that. Also, funny thing, I have a PS4, but I have not played any of the exclusives on PS4 or PS3. I didn't own the PS3 or PS4 until recently. I got a PS4 for Christmas last year. So I've not played any of the Uncharted games. I have not played Infamous. I have not played God of War. I have not played Last of Us. I have not played any of those games. I haven't played Journey or Abzu, although Abzu's on Xbox One now. But those games that are exclusive to the PS4, I have not played at all. So if you guys would like to see like an in-depth video on those from my perspective, I'd be more than happy to do those. I play most of my games on Xbox One anyways, the console exclusives plus the multi-platforms I play on my Xbox One. So if you guys have anything on PS4 that you want to see me do, just let me know in a comment below. Shout out to everyone for liking the video. I'm looking at my notes right now. I'm literally just like, these videos at the end are always unscripted. I just write little notes and then I just go. My mind just goes. So it's partly why I write a script, because I say and I stutter a lot. So you understand that. I guess also I should let you know that I have a Twitch account that I use, or I used to use. I don't quite have the computer to run a Twitch account, so I mainly use the Xbox Twitch or Xbox app to stream. so I'm going to be trying to stream through that more often. Links to Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat are in the link description below, along with my Xbox gamertag if you want to add me. I don't have a PSN network yet, but maybe at some point I will. But if you want to see updates on where I'm at with my videos, you can definitely check out my Instagram or my Snapchat, because I'm always posting those things. And my Twitter doesn't get posted to as often. I normally just retweet funny memes and jokes that I like and I see on there. But other than that, guys, I don't really have anything else. I guess that's it. Shout out to you 440 subscribers. That's actually a lot in my mind, because, you know, this is just the beginning channel. I have 2 videos up on my channel. I've had this account since 2011. I started trying to post back in 2011, and then 12, and then 13, and 14, and 15, and 16, and I just never got into it. I just didn't like what I was doing, and none of it was fun to me. I put a lot of effort into some of those videos too, and they just didn't. I put a lot of effort into them, and yeah, they were getting some views. But I didn't feel inspired, I guess, to keep going. But with you guys letting me know how I'm doing and giving me feedback and saying, wow, this is really good, it inspires me and motivates me to keep going with these videos. So I do plan to keep this thing going. And yeah, much love, fam. I really appreciate you guys coming by and checking the channel out. And if you're new, if you want to hit the subscribe button, go for it. If you want to hit the like button, go for it. I'm not telling you to have to, but if you want to, I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, guys, share this video around on Reddit, share this video around on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you want to share it, and let me know how I'm doing. I'll catch you guys all later. Thank you. Peace. Much love, fam.